Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. The quote of the day is: if you cannot do great things, do small things in a great way. Today, the topic of discussion is data collection analysis and need assessment of research. The learning outlines are data collection and analysis, coding, mechanical techniques, narrative qualitative research, dependability, need assessment in qualitative research, and the learning outcomes. By the end of this presentation, participants will be able to describe the data collection and analysis, coding, dependability, academic research, focus group discussion, nominal group technique, and Delphi techniques. Data collection. Preferable to understand the data adds flexibility to the research. Typically time consuming and laborious, data collection process emergent and flexible. Data analysis. Data collection and analysis are conducted simultaneously. Data collection is an ongoing process that begins with the first place of data collected. Analysis consists of data management, reduction, and coding. Goal is to identify patterns, themes in the data, and links between them. Software can help to manage the data. Interpretive techniques. The most common analysis of qualitative data is observer impression. That is, expert or bystander observers examine the data, interpret it by forming an impression, and report their impression in a structured and sometimes quantitative form. Now, we will discuss about the coding. It is an interpretive technique. It helps to change the qualitative research into the quantitative research. It organizes the data and provides a means to introduce the interpretations of it into certain quantitative methods. Mostly require analysts to read the data and demarcate segments within it, which may be done at different times throughout the process. Each segment is labeled with a code, usually a word or a short phrase that suggests how the associated data segments inform the research objectives. Some qualitative data that is highly structured, for example, close and responsive form surveys or tightly defined interview questions, is typically coded without additional segmenting of the content. In these cases, codes are often as a layer on the top of the data. When coding is complete, the analyst prepares reports by summarizing the prevalence of codes, discussing similarities and differences in related codes across distinct original sources and contexts, or comparing the relationship between one or more codes. Quantitative analysis of these codes is an analytical step for this type of qualitative data. Contemporary qualitative data analysis are sometimes supported by computer programs termed computer-assisted qualitative data analysis software. These programs do not change interpretive nature of coding, but rather are aimed at enhancing the analyst's efficiency at data storage retrieval and at applying the codes of the data. Many programs offer efficiencies in editing and revising coding, which allow for work sharing, peer review, and recursive examination of data. This is the flowchart diagram for coding. First, the data is collected and then researcher reads through or examines the data, making themselves familiar with it, and then the researcher identifies coding units. The data is analyzed by applying the coding units, and then a tally is made on number of times that a coding unit appears. Now, what are the disadvantages of coding? Coding may cause a loss of richness in data. A disadvantage of coding method is that it transforms qualitative data into empirically valid data, which contain actual value range, structure proportion, contrast ratios, and scientific objective properties, thereby draining the data of its variety, richness, and individual character. Analysts remove this limitation by expositing their definitions of codes and linking those codes only to the underlying data, thus bringing back some of the variations that might be absent from a mere list of codes. Now, what are the types of coding? There are two types of coding. There are deductive coding and inductive coding. Deductive coding start with the predefined set of codes, then assign those codes to the new qualitative data. These codes might come from previous research or researcher might already know what themes he is interested in analyzing. Deductive coding is also called concept-driven coding. It is also called open coding, inductive coding. It is also called open coding that starts from the scratch and creates codes based on the qualitative data itself. Researchers don't have a set code book. All codes arise directly from the survey responses. This method is used when you know little about the research subject and conducting heuristic or exploratory research. Now there is a difference between the inductive coding and deductive coding. Inductive coding starts with the theory, hypothesis, observation, and then confirmation, while deductive coding starts with the information, pattern, hypothesis, and theory. Inductive coding is best for the first round of analysis, while deductive coding is best for the subsequent rounds of analysis. Inductive coding determines tag as you go along, while deductive coding uses a predetermined set of tags. Inductive coding is lengthier process, while deductive coding is a quicker process. Inductive research begins with a research question and the collection of empirical data which are used to generate hypotheses and theory. Deductive coding, deductive coding research approaches usually begin with the theory-driven hypotheses which include data collection and analysis. Now the summarization of the qualitative research. Some qualitative datasets are analyzed without coding. These datasets are summarized and this method is called recursive abstraction. The initial datasets are summarized, those summarizes are then further summarized and so on. The end result is more compact summary with potential of generating a better idea or conclusion. A limitation of recursive abstraction is that the final conclusions are several times revised and rearranged from the initial data. The main disadvantage is that poor initial summaries will certainly yield an inaccurate final report. This problem is responded by qualitative analysts. They use a coding method and by documenting the reasoning behind each summary step, they cite examples from the data where statements are included and where statements are excluded from the intermediate summary. That explanation at each step would allow better conclusion in the end. Now we will discuss about the mechanical techniques. Some techniques rely on using computers to scan and reduce large sets of qualitative data. At their most basic level, mechanical techniques rely on counting words, phrases, or coincidences of tokens within the data, often referred to as content analysis. The output from these techniques is amenable to many advanced statistical analysis. Mechanical techniques are particularly well suited for a few scenarios. One such scenario is for data sets that are simply too large for a human to effectively analyze, or where analysis of them would be costly relative to the value of information they contain. The cost-benefit analysis is causing limitations. Another scenario is when the value of dataset is the extent to which it contains the alarming signs. For example, searching for reports of certain adverse events within a lengthy dataset from the patients in a clinical trial. The dataset may involve positive influences, for example, searching for mentions of new medicine in positive reviews of improving outcomes. A frequent criticism of mechanical technique is the absence of a human interpreter. And while the master of these methods are able to write sophisticated software to mimic some human decisions, the most of analysis is computer-based. Analysts respond to these limitations by providing the value of their methods related to the training of human team to analyze the data. The result of qualitative research had reached better conclusions by mechanical data analysis. Narrative qualitative research. Qualitative research in last 10 years has been characterized by concern with everyday categorization and ordinary storytelling. The narrative turn is producing an enormous literature as researchers present sensitizing concepts and perspectives that bear especially on narrative practice, which centers on the circumstances and communicative actions of storytelling. Catherine Weissman in 1993 and Guriam and Holliston in 2009 present a variety of approaches in recent comprehensive texts. Relatedly, narrative practice increasingly takes up the institutional conditioning of narrative practice. For example, narrative research on circumcision in decreasing the sexually transmitted diseases in Sudan has described the advantages and disadvantages of the procedure for a long period of time. Know the dependability. It is a central issue in qualitative research is trustworthiness, that is also called credibility or dependability. There are many different ways of establishing trustworthiness that includes member check, interviewer, corroboration, peer debriefing, prolonged engagement, negative case analysis, auditability, and confirmability. Most of these methods are described by Lincoln and Guba in 1985. In quantitative research, validity plays a similar role as dependability in qualitative research. To come towards the academic research, by the end of 1970s, many leading journals began to publish qualitative research articles, and several new journals emerged which published only qualitative research articles about qualitative research methods. In the 1980s and 1990s, the new qualitative research journals become more multidisciplinary in focus, moving beyond qualitative research disciplinary roots of anthropology, sociology, public health, psychology, and philosophy. William Wundt, the founder of scientific psychology, was one of the first psychologists to conduct qualitative research as part of his series of experiments. Early examples of his qualitative research were published in 1900 through 1920 in his 10-volume study, Walker's Psychology, that is translated to social psychology. Wundt advocated the strong relation between psychology and philosophy. He proposed that there was a gap between psychology and quantitative research that could only be filled by conducting qualitative research. Qualitative researchers dig deep into aspects of human life that could not be adequately be covered by quantitative research, aspects such as culture, expression, beliefs, morality, and imagination. He provided the comprehensive definitions of qualitative research. The excitement about the groundbreaking form of research was short-lived since many of the pioneer studying with qualitative research had already been conducting. This left many psychologists without the recognition they deserved for their significant work in the field of research. Now come towards the second part of the presentation, that is need assessment in qualitative research. The need assessment in qualitative research involves the following research methods that includes using available information in prospective studies, observing, interviewing, administering questionnaire, focus group discussion, nominal group technique, and Delphi techniques. Now we will discuss one by one. First of all is focus group discussion. It is a discussion of 6 to 12 persons guided by a facilitator during which group members talk freely and spontaneously about a certain topic. The purpose of focal group discussion is to obtain in-depth information on concepts, perceptions, and ideas of the group. A focal group discussion aims to be more than a question-answer interaction. The idea is that the group members discuss the topic among themselves. It helps to develop research hypotheses by exploring in greater depth the problem to be investigated and its possible causes. It formulates appropriate questions for more structured, larger-scale surveys. It supplements information on community knowledge, beliefs, attitude, and behavior already available but incomplete or unclear. It develops appropriate message for health education programs. It explores controversial topics. Now the nominal group technique. The nominal group technique is a technique that is useful when one wants to obtain a consensus on a topic where decision making can be usefully guided by perceptions and opinions of various group members. The sequence of the group discussion is usually individual expression followed by voting, followed by further discussion and another round of voting. The group discussion comes to an end when the results of the last vote are not appreciably different from the last but one vote. Here is the flowchart diagram about the nominal group technique. First of all, identify the issue, then each member presents their solution, then we eliminate the duplications, and then discuss each idea as a group, and then voting is done, and then rank the options, and then pick a solution or can be repeated. Know the Delphi technique. The Delphi technique and the nominal group techniques are used in a situation where a group needs senses over an issue that is highly value-laden. The major difference is that in the Delphi technique, groups do not usually meet for the discussion. They communicate by means of questionnaires. Each time a questionnaire circulates, the number of permissible answers is reduced based on the answer in the previous questionnaire. Is a flowchart diagram of the Delphi technique. First of all, the problem is defined, and then we invite our participants, and then we create initiate questionnaire and distributes among the questionnaire among the participants. And then we collect responses, prepare feedback and questionnaire, and then distribute feedback and questionnaires. If the consensus are made, final uh, report of the results are made, and if the consensus are not made, then we collect responses, prepare feedback and questionnaire, and then we repeat with the distribution of the feedback and questionnaires. Know the characteristics of qualitative research. The techniques need ample time and participants, and they must have good written and communication skills. Qualitative researchers are interested in understanding the meaning people have constructive. Qualitative research is an effort to understand the situations in their uniqueness as part of particular contexts and interactions there, as said by the patent in 1985. A second characteristic feature of all forms of qualitative research is that the researcher is the primary instrument for data collection and analysis. A third characteristic feature of qualitative research is the fieldwork. The researcher must go to the people, setting, site, institution in order to observe behavior in its natural setting. While the fourth characteristic feature of qualitative research is that it uses an inductive research strategy. This type of research builds abstractions, concepts, hypotheses, or theories rather than testing existing theory. A fifth characteristic feature of qualitative finding is in the form of themes, categories, concept, or tentative hypotheses or theories. The product of qualitative study is richly descriptive. Qualitative research provides ideas, concepts, and scientific proofs. The mixed research may lead to better outcome measures. The participants in the study should be informed about the terms of agreement, aims, and objectives. Personal information should be kept confidential. Implementation research. Implementation research in institutions where information is lacking or unreliable, decision making based on assumption and unjustified conclusion may result in the selection of inappropriate policies and programs, consequences of which are often grave. Therefore, provide reliable and accurate information for suitable decision making and planning. The importance of research in identifying solutions and options for overcoming implementations obstacles in health systems and programs is widely recognized. This form of research addresses implementation bottlenecks, identifies optimal approaches for a particular setting, and promotes the uptake of research findings. Ultimately, it leads to improved healthcare and its delivery. While implementation research has been defined in various ways by different institutions, common interpretations focuses on systemic approach to understanding and addressing barriers to effective and quality implementation of health intervention strategies and policies. Implementation research is demand driven and the research questions are framed based on needs identified together with relevant stakeholders, implementers in the health system. So there is a flowchart diagram for implementation research. First of all, we identify the issues and health problems, and then we study them in depth and by collection of data, and then we analyze the data and publish research, and then the intervention is done and the impact is formed. And then we evaluate and feedback active surveillance, and then the cycle repeats. The need to address implementation bottlenecks is often greatest in settings where the health systems are weakest or non-existent. Unfortunately, local institutions often have limited knowledge of implementation research and lack essential capacity to frame relevant research questions and conduct, manage and interpret research results for program planning and policy implementation. Academic public health curricula tend not to focus on such research. As a result, most training does not adequately prepare researchers, practitioners, providers, or decision makers for essential partnership and interdisciplinary approaches. Now come towards the intervention. The characteristic of the intervention determine whether it will be adopted or fit for the local health system. Here the term intervention includes the core components and those elements that may be adopted to suit local needs or the conditions. The characteristics of core components such as complexity, cost, and evidence strength play a crucial role. On outer setting, this includes the economic, political, and social context in which an intervention is carried out and that are external to the implementing organization, or institution. It is influenced by external policies and incentives such as global funding systems, as well as by interactions and peer pressure among organizations. Inner setting. This refers to the context within the implementing organization or the institution. It includes the structure of the organization, its culture, that is internal climate and networks, as well as readiness for change. Individuals involved. Individuals involved are the people who have that role in implementation process. This includes the healthcare providers, managers in various parts of organization and institutions, policymakers, and many other stakeholders and beneficiaries. In addition to the original concerns regarding capacity to implement, their perceptions and attitude towards the intervention have an important influence on their commitment to its success and impact. Now, the process for implementation. This incorporates all the methods and the approaches used in facilitating adoption of the intervention at all levels of the organizations, including the planning of strategies and activities. Processes include those explicitly planned and unforeseen ones that emerge during implementation. Advantages, advantages of research. It provides extensive reading to build a sizable pool of knowledge of different situations and options. It provides an opportunity to do significant independent work on a problem or area that will better prepare a professional for achieving identified expertise. It provides opportunities to publish one's observations and share knowledge in a scientific manner. Now, the characteristics of research. Research demands a clear understanding of the problem and finding research action impact. Research builds upon existing data using both positive and negative findings. Research collects new information to answer the original research question. Now come towards the MCQ session. The first MCQ is, data researcher is conducting a research to study the reasons of increasing usage of fairness screens among college girls. He randomly selected a group of girls and then distributed questionnaires among them. He collected data, analyzed it, and redistributed a new questionnaire based upon the feedback of the answer of previous questionnaire, and then he made a consensus. Which type of technique is being used?
Delphi technique.
Yes, C is the right answer. It is the Delphi technique because the questionnaires are distributed among the participants. Now the second MCQ is, which form of reasoning is the process of drawing a specific conclusion from a set of premises?
Deductive.
It is the deductive reasoning because in deductive reasoning already form of data sets are used. Now come towards the third MCQ. The psychiatrists are discussing the increasing incidence of drug abuse in teenagers. First, they give their individual opinions, and then consensus are made on top 5 reasons by voting of all the participants. This type of data collection and analysis is called
B.
B, nominal group technique.
Yes, B is the right option, nominal group technique, because in nominal group technique, opinions are giving and then the consensus are made by the voting. The fourth MCQ, which of the following is not true about focus group discussion? The ideal size is normally between 6 and 12 participants. Moderators should introduce themselves to the group. Participants should come from the diverse backgrounds. The moderator possesses pre-planned questions. C is the right answer because C is the right answer because participants should come from the diverse background. Here is the key and reference. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. West. It is a very good presentation. Overall, especially MCQs were really brilliant. However, I have to say a few things. Number first, that more coherence has to be required. What I meant by coherence is that you have talked about research methods that are usually used in further we have the techniques for the data collection. So all these things they are interconnected with each other. For example, when you are talking about the nominal technique, Delphi technique, and focus group discussions, similarly interviews, all are different techniques for data collection. So you have presented it very well, but I want a table so that what are the differences between nominal, Delphi, and focus group discussion. Just in a single slide, you can present differences in these three important techniques. Another important point is please send me your presentation. I haven't received your this presentation as well as your previous presentation. So I would request every participant who is listening to me, Dr. Sadia, Dr. Amber, Dr. Awais, Dr. Isma, Dr. Khansa, Dr. Meha, Dr. Mehreen, Dr. Naila, Dr. Rabia, Dr. Sadia, Dr. Shehzad, all those who are listening to me. And today, Dr. Dawood is not with us. I don't know why, but please tell him too that all those who have presented the research methods since the first of this month, please send your presentation to me today positively, and so that all these presentations can be revised and reviewed. Or if anybody has any question, you are most welcome to ask from Dr. West, please. Okay, if no question, thank you very much, Dr. West. Looking forward to your presentation. Please
Thank
send
you.
it to me today, please. Okay,
Okay, ma'am.
thank you. Allah Hafiz.